So Paul, I'm just going to read a little off your site, but and you can really fill in the blanks. But so honored tonight to have Paul Harding join us. Paul, I met through Patricia Burke of Safe Tech International out of Massachusetts. And Paul's personal health journey started really as a fight for his life when the utility put a smart meter on his home, and his health suffered a complete breakdown, mainly through the sleep at first. And he would wake up many times in the middle of the night. Often, those are the same times that the smart meter would do what's called a data dump, Paul found. And this, of course, led to low levels of melatonin and can lead to levels of chronic disease for all of us. As many of you know, the inability to repair during sleep is directly related to cancer, diabetes, Parkinson's, dementia, fibromyalgia, ADHD, along with so many other things. So, upon further research, Paul found that the smart meters produce what are called kilohertz frequencies on the home wiring and electrical field. And those correlate with, those frequencies correlate with those that are used to open the sodium and potassium ion channels in our brain, in our body, that facilitate cellular communication, repair, regeneration. And that's why it's so important to get our home wiring mitigated, because there's so many other things out there that, I hear constantly with the 5G towers or the Wi-Fi or the cell phones, but this is a field that we live in day by day. Regardless, if you even don't own a cell phone, you may still be exposing yourself to these kilohertz frequencies. And that's why it's so important, because I also believe that this is one of the things that we can make the most change in, because, let's face it, so many of us have our cell phone, we're addicted to our cell phone for better or worse. But this is an area where we can, maybe not all of us reduce this EMF, but most of us can, because this is something that's already in our home, and there are some steps we can take. So without further ado, thank you, Paul, for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, Roman. Yeah, this is fun. This is I guess we're going to go through the slideshow.
Yeah. So yeah, if you want
to,
whatever you want to do, it's
okay.
Balls in your court.
Okay. Yeah, because there's a lot of credit to other people. I'm just a guy that can run some meters, and I know how to make connections, and I know how to fix stuff. That's it. It's nothing like I'm not a scientist, but I feel like I'm on the front line because I get to see the results of what happens when, you clean a house up, right? So I get to see leukemia, prostate cancer, colon cancer, diabetes. I get this inflammation, arthritis. I get to see it all reverse itself, and it's very quick. It's not like, it's a 6-month process or anything. It happens super quick once you get rid of this environment. So anyway, I'm going to try to do the screen share. My wife has left.
Stars, and of course, the most important Hollywood star would be his son.
All right. Let's see here. Amy? Hold on a second here. Yeah, I need help.
It's okay. I'll add also, I know,
Here,
Paul, you're saying you're just a guy, but you are very passionate about what you're doing. And that passion really exudes itself. So not everybody can do what you do. So yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We're trying to do what we did in the beginning. So I need to start the slideshow first, I guess, right? Hit share.
I'm going to do screen 2. Okay.
No, because it's going to come over here. Go to screen 1.
Screen 1?
Yeah. Yeah. Can you see that? Is it?
Yeah.
Can you see the mentors? Okay.
Yeah, we can see it.
All right. So we've got Professor Martin Graham, Dave Stetzer, And Sam Milham, there I am with Sam. Got to spend some time when we were fighting the smart meter here in Arizona, but that's where I've learned the good stuff from. So these are the patents that Dr. Martin Graham holds. Quite a few, as you can see. I mean, and these are things that we use in everyday electronics, or we used to anyway. So here's Sam Milham's bio. He's an MD, MPH. He won the 1997 Ramazzini Award for public health and showing that electromagnetic fields were affecting him. That's a worldwide, and these are some of the papers that he's written, all about dirty electricity. Found that the Amish weren't being affected as much as people that have electricity. Dave Stetzer is a senior IEEE member, and he's got all the credentials. He's the guy that I learned how to run a scope from and learned how to do most of my connections with. Anyway, so we're going to watch what happened.
Finally tonight, keeping boredom out of biology. A Harvard
All right, Amy.
Finally tonight, keeping boredom out of biology. A Harvard biology professor.
Amy. So my wife decides to leave me right
Punishing you.
hanging. All right, so I'm going to stop this slide share and I'm going to try to play this video for us because it's really cool. Hold on a second here.
And Nancy says biology is not boring.
If I can get this to work here. All right, here we go. And we're going to go screen one. Can you see that?
Nope.
I'm going to share.
Okay, yeah, someone start. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, you're
Finally
good.
tonight, keeping boredom out of biology. A Harvard biology professor recently was looking for a way to spice up his course and attract more biology majors. His idea? Get one of America's great animators to make a film showing what's going on in everyone's bodies right now. So what are Harvard students seeing these days? Our Robert Krulwich thought you'd be as fascinated as we were.
This is what a human cell looks like in a textbook, dull and still. But your cells are alive. They're in constant motion. They should be a movie, says Harvard biology professor Robert Liu.
I'm a big movie buff.
And so Professor Liu made a movie, an illustrated but scientifically accurate view of what goes on. For example, let's plunge down here and watch what happens when the cell wants to move something from deep inside the cell to the outside. First, proteins are just floating around, and they suddenly come together to build a road.
But as you can see, they grow from little subunit, little smaller proteins coming together.
And this happens all the time?
It's happening all the time.
So the bones grow where they're needed, just like this?
Yes, absolutely. And now this is a more complex fiber called the microtubule.
Into being.
Exactly. Here it is falling apart.
And it does this as required?
Yes. Yes.
So we're going to create highways or bones of the skin. Oh wait, what is this?
Yes. Now this is a protein called a motor protein.
This isn't real, right?
It is real. That's walking along one of those microtubules.
This clumpy thing?
Yes.
There it is dragging
again.
that huge sac?
So it's dragging this membrane sac full of proteins.
This is the stuff we want to get out of the cell.
Now, how does it know what direction to go? Like, if I told it turn around, would it be able to?
It can't, because the foot only fits in one direction going one way.
So the grooves are preset to go in one particular direction?
Yes.
And how many of these roads are being built every, second?
Oh, thousands. I mean, there are thousands of these fibers, if not tens of thousands, in every cell. And also...
In your cell, right now, as you're looking, all the time.
Right, and they're being built and they're being broken down.
And this is typical cell behavior. Nothing special. There's the cargo being dumped out of the cell. So there you are sitting watching this on TV, and you're thinking, well, I'm pretty much doing nothing. But your 72 trillion cells are a riot of magical, elegant, exquisitely organized activity in you right now. Robert Krulwich, ABC News, New York.
Makes you want to go back and take biology. That is World News for this Tuesday. I'm Charlie Gibson, and I hope you had a good day. For all of us at ABC News, have a good night.
Okay, so you're wondering, why did he just show us that? You still there?
Yep.
Okay. So we had to do something different. Why did we have to do? So in 2013, there were 3 Nobel Prize winners, and they found how everything worked in the cell, and it had to happen, everything had to happen at the right place at the right time in the cell. It says disturbances in this system have deleterious effects and contribute to conditions such as neurological diseases, diabetes, and immunological disorders. The next report that I'm going to reference, and it kind of makes sense as far as what I look for in my job, is from the NIEHS 1999 EMF Rapid Report. And it states through the that 1,000 milligauss or 1 millivolt per meter is a problem of internal electric fields, as you can see. It states on the last paragraph, studies at lower exposures are inconclusive. This is another very important paper. It talks about contact current with residential magnetic fields. And so there were quite a few magnetic field studies that were brought up like in the 90s. And they said, well, it was the magnetic field that was the problem. This paper was written by Rob Cavett with the Electrical Power Research Institute. And he found that, or they reviewed everything, and they found that there were studies showing no effect with the magnetic field. So there's something called contact current that happens. And contact current produces internal electric fields inside the body, and they are present with magnetic fields inside a neighborhood. So when a consultant goes out to your house, they should turn off all the power at the breaker panel and then measure what's happening within the neighborhood or around the house. And that will give them a really good idea of if there is ground current or whatever, right? Because a magnetic field's being made. Now, just because there isn't a magnetic field does not mean that there is ground current. So I've measured homes where there was no magnetic field at all, but there was ground current, and there was voltage in the earth, and there were frequencies in the ground. And as you can see, the absolute as well as modest level of contact current modeled 18 microamps. So this tiny, tiny bit of current inside the body produces average electric fields in tissue along its path that exceed 1 millivolt per meter. And then it references that paper that I just showed you, the NIEHS working group. It accepts that biological effects relevant to cancer have been reported in numerous well-programmed studies. So it's affecting the cell proliferation, the disruption of signal transduction pathways. Sam Milham wrote a paper on the 289, the Fluke 289 or 287. Actually, the 287, I'm showing you the 289. What it does is it measures, the ceiling is so high at like 100 kilohertz, it's able to measure the current that goes through your body. So instead of putting it on the volt setting, you would put it on the microamp setting, place one probe in the ground plug, and then he would hold the other one, or actually would actually put it in his mouth, which is horrible, but it'll tell you how many microamps are traveling into your body or through your body when you are connected to the ground. So here we have electrical stimulation, electropathology. This was written at Johns Hopkins University, and it shows that the total body impedance changes as frequencies rise. So at 60 hertz, which is the green, the total body impedance is about 3,000 ohms. But once the frequencies rise right around 1.7 kilohertz, 2 kilohertz or so, the total body impedance drops to 500. So that's the protection of your skin or your body. And that's a good reason why you don't want to be in a field of dirty electricity, because your skin changes. So we clean that up, and all of a sudden the internal electric fields aren't produced inside the body, if it's just a dirty electricity problem. If you're grounding or touching the ground wire, that's a totally different situation. The ground wire is filled with frequencies and there is voltage on it. And that will create internal electric fields. So you don't want to do that, right? Because 1 millivolt's a problem. That study came from, here's the paper, Electrical Impedance of the Human Body. This was from the U.S. Naval Weapons Laboratory, 1968, Herman Schwann. So how did we, why don't we know more about this? I'm going to reference this paper from the Defense Intelligence Agency, Biological Effects of Electromagnetic Radiation. So radio waves and microwaves. So dirty electricity is in the radio frequency range, which is over 3 kilohertz. And that's from 3 kilohertz to 300 gigahertz. It states that if the more advanced nations of the West are strictening the enforcement of stringent exposure standards, there could be unfavorable effects on industrial output and military functions. Kind of says it all in the same paper. It talks about how the sodium and potassium ion channels were also affected. Affects the digestive system. And here we have the Naval Medical Research Institute from the 70s. And I'm not going to go through every single one of these, but it's being recorded. You can go back. There's 5 pages. Basically says that every disorder that's out there is due to this exposure. And that's from the U.S. Navy in the 70s. So I like this one. I'm going to go back here. Depression, impotence, anxiety, lack of concentration, hypochondria, dizziness, sleeplessness, insomnia, loss of memory, chest pain, tremors in the hands. Here we've got metabolic disorders. And the last page. All right, so NASA also has a paper talking about electromagnetic field interactions with the human body, observed effects and theories. This is from April of 1981. And when I show people this paper or this slide, they say, yep, that's me. I pretty much got everything almost. At the very bottom, difficulty with sex life. So it creates numbness. And, it's no fun waking up with numb hands or, numb everything else, right? Loss of hair. I see feelings of fear in some people when they're exposed to particular frequencies. I saw that a couple of weeks ago. There's a frequency on the line that, it's just going to create paranoia, and you can almost predict and tell them, when you see it, you go, oh yeah, you're paranoid. They look at each other like, oh yes, we are. We don't trust anybody. Anyway, here's another page from the NASA paper. So here's a paper showing how these kilohertz frequencies are being used today to open sodium and potassium ion channels in order to create nerve block. Greater than 15 kilohertz. One model was greater than 15 kilohertz, the other one greater than 6 kilohertz. And these were on animals. These, we're using them today. So low potassium, results of low potassium, constipation, heart palpitation, extreme tiredness, fatigue, muscle weakness, and spasm to tingling, numbness, and diabetes. Here's another paper next to it showing that when you have low potassium, you can get diabetes, electrolyte disturbances. So here's another paper talking about, these kilohertz frequencies. They're just loaded with it. You can look them up for yourself online. Just put KHZ and nerve in PubMed, and you'll find tons of stuff. They're using 10 kilohertz to create numbness in the spine here, stimulation and treatment. So they're very biologically active, these kilohertz frequencies. They kill and they hurt. So this was another, it's a little backwards here. I was going to show you the US Air Force paper, but you're hearing a lot of things out there about you should be grounding protects you, and that's not true. As you can see, the grounded person is the solid line, and the isolated person is the dotted line. So when you're grounded, you are absorbing more in the air, especially if there's radio frequency or anything like that, or electric fields. You're going to be more of an antenna than you are safe, right? More from the US Air Force paper. I don't know why I don't have the beginning of it, but anyway, this was from our Air Force. So they use this stuff as weapons. This was a classified document. It no longer is. That's why I have it. But radio frequency directed energy, incapacitating effect, disruption of neural control. Okay. So they're using it to affect the nerves. So here's my smart meter setup. And I went and got a smart meter, as you can see, and put it on a board, made up a board, and connected the scope meter, and showed in Take Back Your Power that it creates these kilohertz frequencies. Should use a fluke scope meter. Do not rely on a Pico USB because they found to be inaccurate when measuring dirty electricity. They cannot be used in a courtroom. So everything that I do, I've got to be prepared to take it in front of a judge for sure. These were the waveforms that smart meter was producing. 25 kilohertz was one of the frequencies. There's quite a few there. And this is from Take Back Your Power. You see on the bottom, it's clean somewhat, and then on the other, it's fuzzy. It doesn't look like that all the time. It only looks like that when it's transmitting. So RF travels on energized wiring, and that's why it looked like that. That's RF. And here's a paper talking about superharmonics. So if anybody says, no, they don't produce dirty electricity, there's non-biased papers out there saying that there's a problem with not only the smart grid, but electric vehicle charging, all sorts of, aging capacitors and all sorts of problems. Superharmonics. So the power line communication systems that they're using now are worse than the RF systems because they are purposefully producing these kilohertz frequencies on the line. And if we were to go to, just an average 6 volts per meter, I don't know if you can see that little pen down there, but if we were to take 6 volts per meter of an electric field with those kilohertz frequencies, that's equal to 100,000 microwatts per square meter. And then, 19.4 volts per meter is equal to 1 million microwatts per square meter. So you're in a you're in a cell tower really when they're present within the line, because your skin doesn't protect you as we go back. The impedance changes, right? This was one of the first recordings I got with a smart grid data dump. And at that time, we had brought it to their attention that these smart meters were dumping data in the middle of the night. And this is the spike. As you can see, it was pretty quiet. And then all of a sudden, wham, happened for about 45 seconds. Now, since then, I've used I don't know if I have a picture of it, but I used a scanner. You can get a scanner that goes through the 902 to 928 megahertz. So real-time data dump for smart meters in common praxis. So as you can see, they do intervals at 15 minutes or, whenever it's quiet. So doing this in the middle of the night kind of stinks. So there was this gal Flo. She made this. We gave her the idea, and she came up with this cartoon. It's pretty cool. It has the smart meter sunlight, and it's affecting the cryptochrome in the eye, and that message is being sent back to the suprachiasmatic nuclei via the suprachiasmatic nuclei to the pineal gland, and it basically says, hey, it's there's sunlight or there's EMF, right? So you may be sleeping with the lights on, you got them off, but you have all this other stuff that's affecting that cryptochrome.
EMF.
Yeah, EMF. There I am. I don't know why this picture's in here. There I was trying to get the best sleep ever. And I was I rented a property and through my journey on this. And so I actually went and slept in a cave. And that's when everybody said, you got to be connected with the ground and this and that. I was, and it didn't really help. So there I am. Somebody's taken a picture of this. I told them not to, but they did, and they sent it to me. It was a client that came up to see what was going on. So with 5G, it's the fifth generation, right, of wireless, basically. Yeah, right now we're at 4G going into 5G, and I'm finding that it's the kilohertz frequencies, or it's the subcarrier frequencies that are in the kilohertz range, just like in dirty electricity, and they can enter your home on a 700 or 800 megahertz frequency. So with 5G, it's just not those super high frequencies. They can use 800, 700 megahertz in the TV range even. So they will be everywhere, and they'll be sending these kilohertz frequencies. You just can't get away from them. I did a pilot program, or I was part of measuring a house in Boston, and it was a pilot neighborhood. The kids were waking up every 45 minutes, and they looked like raccoons. They had black circles around their eyes. And the neighbor across the street just passed away. She was in her 50s for no reason. Her heart stopped. So it's pretty dangerous stuff. I don't know why I have Kirchhoff's law in there, but anyway, voltmeters. Yeah. So when you're measuring body voltage, you've got to measure the same frequency. It's called voltage drop. Again, I might have pulled up the wrong slideshow. So batteries use potassium and sodium, right? Supercapacitors, and we are a battery. Sam Milham, he found that, or Magda Havas, I'm sorry, this is a Magda Havas and Milham, and it affected cows and people with diabetes. All right. The dangers of the wireless age, I don't know.
What I hope to do tonight is to talk a little bit about where we are today with the science, what we understand.
So this is Dr. George Carlo.
Dangers.
I encourage you to look him up.
It's much different from what we understood a year ago. And it will be much different from what we understand 6 months from now.
Sorry about that. That's a long video. That's probably a 30-minute video. I encourage you to go look that up on the internet. Dr. George Carlo found that it was the subcarrier frequencies that were biologically active and not the carrier wave. His house was burnt down, and he went into hiding for 7 years. He was physically attacked, and but anyway, he was head of that $28.5 million cell phone study. Roman, I am so sorry. This is talking about body capacitance. So the body acts like a capacitor, and as you can see, just synthetic fabrics and friction can charge a human body to about 3,000 volts. So I encourage people to stand on aluminum foil or short your capacitor out by standing on metal or anything for about 90 seconds, and it'll do that. Especially before you go to bed. You can also take a shower and get rid of that body capacitance. I think we're at the end. No, we're not. So Marconi station. So these frequencies have been around for a long time. They used the kilohertz frequencies in the very beginning. 80 to 100 kilohertz. Actually, they went down to 10 and 15, and that was the main carrier wave. And that was right around the Spanish flu. I'm not saying that it caused the Spanish flu, but for sure, people's immune systems were being attacked. All right. I think I can stop. I just realized that I did show you the wrong presentation. I'm sorry. I apologize for anybody I try to put it better the best I could, but anyway.
Hey, well, there's still a lot of valuable info there. So, we'll have another presentations, a lot more presentations.
Yeah.
So I'd like to ask the first question.
Sure.
So, in terms of body voltage, I know, a lot of people, building biologists and stuff like that. And I was talking about it too. And that's where you kind of, I guess, knock some common sense into me that, voltage is just a measure of potential. So it's not really finding what's really important is the current that's being drawn through our body. So for anybody who doesn't know, body voltage is used as a building biology standard to basically say that, or certify that your bedroom is safe, that you're lying on the bed and you have 0 body voltage, so you're good. But it's not really measuring electrical fields or current or things like that. So maybe you want to maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's measuring the what's on the skin, and then it's measuring the difference in wherever the other probe is. So if the probe were touching 120 volts and you were touching 120 volts, it would read 0. So so when you are taking that measurement, and it happened to me actually in the very beginning when I was doing that, and I didn't know any better. I had a lady one time that couldn't let go of my probe that was in her hand. It was actually creating current inside her body, and she couldn't let go. I had to take the other probe out, and then she was able to let go. So it's a very dangerous thing to do, to stick one probe into an outlet like that, or a ground. It's saying that there's 0 on that ground, and when you touch, I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, when you take 2 probes and you put them together, you're going to read 0. So if you've got one probe in your hand and your foot's on wherever that other potential is, it's going to read 0. The thing is when you turn this meter to the microamp setting, you can actually see the current that's flowing through your body, and as little as 18 microamps causes cancer. And electrical fields like that, when you expose yourself to them, it takes seconds to you can cause ventricular fibrillation just by touching a sink that has ground on it, and you're sitting there with your wet feet on the ground, and you're creating what's called contact current. And anyway, it's not taught in any electrical literature or anything, but as they've been trained to do that. So anyway.
Yeah, no, thank you. So we have a few questions here by the audience. So
Sure.
Nancy was just saying, hey, Paul, just talk about dirty electricity and your experience, especially how you use the Stetzer filters and meters. And Robin was also asking, what meters do you use and why?
What meters do I use? Well, I use an NFA 1000 for electric fields, 3D electric fields. And instead of hooking somebody up or anything, I can pretty much find out if it's a 0 field, like at their bed. And I encourage that for anybody that has a smart meter or can't clean up their dirty electricity fields. I use an oscilloscope. So this is something I can take and measure, sink to floor or potential contact current. I use, for RF, I use the HF59B. Okay. And then I've got another higher frequency meter, HFW 59D. Yeah, so those are the meters, and then I use the microsurge meter, the Stetsriser microsurge meter. So the Stetsriser microsurge meter is a gram Stetzer unit. It has science that supports reducing levels of histamine in the blood sugar, and raising neurotransmitters once you get the numbers below 33. And that's what Sam Milham and I believe, Sam Milham did most of the work. And I have to agree, it's incredible. You get these filters in, and you have to measure every single outlet in the house, right? Because you have circuits that aren't affected by a filter when you plug it in. So, you've got lighting circuits and everything else that don't have outlets on it. So you've got to calm the whole house down. I've seen many times where people put 3 or 4 in their house and expect results, and you're not going to get it. You're going to use about 10 for every 1,000 square feet or so. And, it's important where you start. You don't want to have dimmer switches in your house. And, I can't get results with one dimmer switch in the house, right? You have to look for sources. So you have to unplug everything in the house and then start from there with that microsurge meter. Now, if you're plugging things in and the numbers only get to 40 or 50, then you got a harmonics problem. You're going to need an oscilloscope. So the microsurge meter is just a cheap way to get the numbers. And I think, Dr. Martin Graham, he's passed away, but he really left us with a cool meter to figure out where you're at in the house.
Yeah, so thanks for that. And so Nancy's also asking, what kind of assays do you do for clients at their homes?
So, first I'm going to go in and make sure you don't have any ground current. If I find ground current right off the bat, there's no use trying to clean anything else up. Unfortunately, you're just going to have to move. It happened to me. I went out, I moved out to a place that didn't have dirty electricity. It didn't have any RF, didn't have any magnetic fields. And I sent the waveforms to Dave because he wanted to know where they were, Dave Stetzer. And he said, I wouldn't spend one night there. And you're going to have a heart attack. And sure enough, I was having problems with pain, chest pain, or, pain in my arm and dizziness and everything else. And it was due to ground current. So if you've got ground current, there's nothing you can do. And I'm sorry. I try to, say it as nice as I possibly can. But then we go in and clean up the power quality. Then go in, or, after you get the power quality, good. Definitely your RF sources. I'm not saying that wireless isn't bad at all. It is. Wi-Fi and, Wi-Fi on your thermostats and, your iPads or air filters. I mean, everything's wireless nowadays. So you definitely want to check that, because that's like a flashlight going off in the middle of the night when your eye, there's no light on, but your eye is going to react to it, or the cryptochrome in the retina of the eye, according to the scientist. Did I answer that correct? Or is that what you wanted to know?
I think so. Nancy, maybe put it in the chat if you have another question, but that was pretty, I think that was pretty solid.
I can't see the chat, so.
Paul,
Yes.
I'm looking at property. You and I have emailed back and forth, and I'm going to give you a call to potentially
Okay.
come and take a look at something. So I wanted a little overview.
Did you get those filters in yet?
Well, I've only got one in. Obviously,
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't have enough.
Yeah. So a lot of people make that mistake. They go and they go, oh, I've got wiring errors or something. But that paper that I showed you, that contact current paper, they kind of proved that the wiring errors in that magnetic field wasn't the thing responsible for the leukemia. It wasn't the problem. And if you just get those filters in there, if you buy them from Dave Stetzer, he has like a 90-day money back guarantee, and he'll take them back, no problem. But I would get, it's going to be a lot cheaper to get how many, filter, 10 for every 1,000 than moving. And I've seen this happen before where people move and they didn't have to move. They were in a good spot. But anyway, you never know until you go out and measure it, right?
Paul, do you need one for every electrical circuit?
You need one for every, or you need one for every 100 square feet in your house. So 1,000 square feet, you're going to need about 10. Figure that. You're going to put a couple of them on your modem on a power strip, and then you're going to disperse them out. You got to get the meter. You have to have the meter, and you kind of experiment. What goes. Where do they go down? Where do the numbers? Where do you get the best results? So you're not just going to plug them in without finding the best outlet. So I do that. I tune the house, and I can do it pretty quick. But that's if there's sorry.
You have a lot of good information to share on what to do with the ONTs from the fiber coming to the house as well, and using Stetzer filters. The group might benefit from that knowledge?
Well, the ONTs, first, I like to get the cable people to put the ONTs in like the garage, or far away from the rest of the house, and then a power strip. If we can get the power and put it into a power strip, and then placing the filter in the right position. If you look at dirty electricity, or you think of dirty electricity like water, it's clean water, dirty water, and then apply that technique to when you're using the filters. You wouldn't want to put it downstream. You want to put it upstream, and be like, you got a toilet on the other side and it keeps flushing, polluting the rest of the house. You want to isolate it.
A lot of the EMS folks are being severely affected by the solar that's inverters in their neighborhoods, and now EV chargers, and having to move, being very sick.
Yeah.
What would you suggest to them?
Oh boy, without seeing an oscilloscope, or without a scope there, you have to use an oscilloscope for that. That's gonna show you everything. It's the master of EMR. You see the frequencies, you see the voltage, and then placing it in the right position. So that's when a professional should be out at the house and checking that out. But yeah, if you've got a neighbor that put an EV charger in their house, and you share a transformer with it, it's definitely going to affect your house. So there's inductors that you can put in. You don't have to move. You can clean it up. Most likely, unless you have a power quality issue, now it's affecting the transformer, and you may have, the utilities have to stay within a certain guideline, on harmonics. So if they're creating harmonics, then they may have to put in a new transformer. But
How about baseboard electric heating? Does that what's the effects in the environment of that?
Well, you've got an electric field, right?
Yeah.
So if it's clean, then your skin protects you at 3,000 ohms if it's 60 hertz. But if it's dirty, it's an antenna. So get rid of the antennas by cleaning up the power quality.
So even electric stoves could be safe so long as the 60 hertz is clean.
Right, exactly. That's the problem, is you want to keep those frequencies. Those kilohertz frequencies are biologically active. They're using it in medicine today, to create nerve blocks. So you want to get those out for sure. A lot of people are dehydrated. A lot of people, they can't keep the electrolytes in their body, and they're exposed to these same frequencies. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point on the dehydration. Thank you, Nancy, for all those questions. On the dehydration, because our brain, every time it fires, it uses water. So every time our neurons fire, we use water. So And to put further strain on us are these electrical fields. Our brain is an electrical organ. So now, can we drink water fast enough or should we just mitigate the field? So I did have a question by Jackie. She was asking about how do we measure ground current? Now, I know you're saying with the fluke meter or oscilloscope, is there any other way you could measure ground current?
Yeah, you're going to need a scope.
Yeah.
The only way you're going to see it, because, that's the only way you're going to see it is with a scope. Yep.
Gotcha.
And it's got to be isolated. So you can't use an electric scope. You've got to use a good quality scope, right? And unfortunately, you got to know how to run it, and then you got to go out and spend, thousands of dollars to get one. So it's easy. It's cheaper to have me come out to figure out what's going on than it is to go out and try to do it yourself.
Exactly. Because you've been doing this how many years, Paul?
Well, I got started in 2011, but really I didn't know what I was doing until 2016 when I got involved with Dave Stetzer and Sam Milham. So when I got involved with them, everything made sense and the answers came clear. And before, it was a guessing game and it was a mysterious thing. And you're measuring these, you'd have an electrical engineer out the house and you couldn't answer their questions. Now I can answer all the questions. I don't care who they are. I can talk to a microbiologist or an electrical or an RF engineer and they get it. And that, it's all explainable. It's all explainable with science from our government. So.
Yeah, thanks. Now we had a Pasca asking, how do I fix a high magnetic field in a bedroom area? What do I tell my electrician to do? Good question, but that's a loaded question.
It is because there again, you're going after something that the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences says that anything less than 1,000 milligauss, the studies are inconclusive, compared to 1 millivolt per meter of internal electric fields. So it's the electric fields that go internal that are the problem. I know there's a lot of people out there measuring magnetic fields, and a magnetic field is just basically, especially if it's in a bedroom, you turn off the power, it's not there, but then you turn the power back on and it's there. That's not ground current or anything. That's just saying that your return pathway is separate from the line coming in, and that's all that happens, really. There's a magnetic field being built up. But so with cells, they in a petri dish, they couldn't get an effect anything less than 1,000 milligauss. And yeah, some labs found that there was a problem, and some labs found that there wasn't. It wasn't like anybody was lying. It's just, what was the power quality in these labs, or what was the power quality in these situations, and what was the contact current in these situations. And so that paper, I encourage you to look it up, that from Rob Cavet. He they're not saying that there isn't a problem, but they're saying that it isn't the magnetic field. And I've got to agree. I fixed so many magnetic fields. I fixed so many wiring errors. I used to do it all the time. And you might be able to get your numbers lower on your gram sets per unit, but I wouldn't, as far as your electrician is concerned, I would tell them to lift the neutrals, turn all the power off at your panel and lift the neutrals one by one and check them for continuity. More than likely, if it's in your bedroom, if it's not on the light switch, most likely in the bedroom, it's just a little ground wire that's touching the neutral side of your receptacle. So, don't work on it yourself, of course, but I've seen that over and over again. It's not hard to find. It's pretty quick. But again, it could be something else. More than likely, that's what it is. It's just the ground wire touching the neutral. They all end up at the same pathway, right? So you have these people that plug in these sheets into their ground wire, and it's actually plugging at the same place where the neutral wire is, the left side of the spade, and they wonder why they get sick.
Wow. The magnetic and electrical thing, that makes sense, because anytime you have electrical field, it creates a magnetic field. So the electricity is the primary thing that we're dealing with in this example.
Yeah.
We had a lady ask, also Nancy, Paul, how do you power off? How do you power your off-grid house?
With solar. So I live off grid, and I use mini splits. I use solar, but the inverters are low frequency inverters. I got the same inverters that Ed Friedman has up there in Maine. I don't know if he has them anymore, but they're cleanable. Whereas if you're going to use a high frequency inverter, you can't clean those up. So with my job, I know what to do, and I can make the power cleaner than what the utility provides.
And do you know what type of what brand they are?
Yeah, the SMA, Sunny Islands.
Yeah.
They're huge. Yeah, they're like
SM,
100. Yeah, SMA.
Sunny Island, Sunny Boy.
Yep. The Sunny Island for off grid. But yeah, like those, they're like 130 pounds a piece. Pretty heavy.
Mm.
So the lightweight inverters, those are going to be, typically they're going to be high frequency inverters, and you can't clean those up. So, but I live off grid because I don't like ground current, and that happens in so many neighborhoods. It's just hit or miss, right? And they can change, it can change whatever you want, but that's I go into a house, and my goal is to clean it up, make it safe, and get results. And that makes, that's what I try to do.
So another really, I guess, interesting thing that try to find a different word than interesting, because I hate the word interesting.
Yeah.
But I guess a crazy thing with that whole smart meter thing at 2:30 a.m., because I have so many people telling me, hey, I wake up at 2:30 or I wake up at 3. Now I know our livers are very active that time of day, but I find it fascinating because 2:33, that's the true witching hour, and that's because a lot of dark rituals, you want to call them, are done at that time, because it's very quiet in the atmosphere, so you can harvest energy very efficiently because there's not a lot of background noise. Whereas like 3 p.m. in the afternoon, it's very turbulent. So I'm wondering, are you finding, you're saying like 2:33, this is on average, that's when you see this kind of?
You never know. When we first brought it to the Arizona Department of Health Services, with a smart meter case that we did here in Arizona, when we brought it to their attention, they told the utility, and all of a sudden the times changed. So when I was visiting Ed in Maine, I have a relative that actually was head of the smart grid back there, and at the time, he doesn't work for me anymore, but he said, how did you get into this? And I said, I was waking up at 3:12 in the morning, just wide awake. I couldn't get back to sleep. And I found out that's when they were dumping data. And he looked at his wife with eyes like, here he worked for the smart grid, and he couldn't figure out that the times that he was dumping. So he confirmed it, and I think all he did was change the time to like 4 or 5 o'clock whenever he woke up. In the morning. But the poor people that went to bed at 2 a.m. And they're waking up at 3 for no reason, or you have the people in there that say, well, I'm waking up because I have a weak bladder, I got to urinate. Well, that's what you do when you wake up, right? You urinate. So what woke you up? You can do this, or you can find out and experiment with yourself. Just buy yourself a scanner, on eBay, one of the older ones or whatever, but make sure that they have a frequency range of 902 to 928 megahertz. And so when you wake up, scan it real quick. I know it's hard to do, but you'll catch it, and it will sound like popcorn going off. It's like pop, 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 pop. I had a guy show up on my YouTube channel, and he said, yeah, use this device and you can actually get the data. And he was a hacker. And YouTube took his comment off. So I think I got the device somewhere, but I don't want to hack anything. I don't want to destroy anything or whatever. I just like to bring it to their attention. So, when you're in the courtroom or whatever, and you're trying to fight these stupid meters, talk about the data dumps, because the judge and the jury, they're waking up at the same time too. It doesn't affect anybody different. So It could be 12 a.m. It could be 4 a.m. I think they changed it to like 4 a.m. in our area. But
That's a great point. We're all affected. So, yeah. And Pasca, he said that they've measured daily and found the same thing, spikes after 2, but then noticed massive spikes even later in the day, consistently at 2 to 3. Pasca, I don't know if you want to mention or put it in the chat how you measured. That would be good to know. And we can, the scanner brand is we can put it in the chat. It's Radio Shack Pro 91, right? Something like that.
That's what I used. You don't have to use that. It was just, I like to go to Goodwill, and it was like $5. So I was like, oh, cool. This is exactly what I needed, and I went through it. Actually, I caught it on accident. I wasn't looking for the smart grid, but I was up and I was letting it scan, and it stopped at that 927 or something like that. So that frequency, the half wavelength of that frequency, is the same size as your skull, 6.5 inches or so, right? So you're laying down, you got this resonant frequency, or this frequency that could make the skull resonant, pulsed. So it's 900 megahertz and it's pulsed. I saw a paper on the Magda Havas site or the Zori Glaser site, and they show that those are the most biologically active microwave frequencies, 900 megahertz and 2.4 gigahertz. One's the half wavelength is your eye, and could make the eye resonant, and then the 902 to 928. Another thing that was happening was detached retinas were happening in homes that had just had a smart meter installed, and it was from the neighbor, and it was facing their bedroom. And found that interesting too, in healthy people that never had any issues, all of a sudden they're having detached retinas. But
so people are asking to you'll go out to people's homes, and you do this throughout the world as well, right, Paul?
Yeah, I got a passport, so
yeah. Okay. All right, good. That's a start. And Pasca was saying she measured the field with the data dump with the GQ EMF 390 and safe and sound too.
Good. Yeah. Yep.
Now, is anybody? I know we're getting questions in the chat, but I'll open it up too if anybody wants to just ask questions vocally as well. I'll open it up just for a few minutes because we're getting to that hour mark, but and then I just have a few words. Yeah, Nancy?
Paul, how
Yes.
do your assays different from what a building biologist would do?
So my assays use a scope. So a lot of them, this is my main tool.
That's the Fluke?
Yeah, that's the Fluke. This one's a 199, but it's called the scope meter. It's a Fluke scope meter. So those reports I can take. I've got an expert witness, Dave Stetzer. He's an expert witness. So if we have any issues, we can take that to court. All of his cases have been successful, 100%. He's never lost a case. None of his cases have lost. They've gone to the Supreme Court level in Minnesota and in Michigan. Wisconsin. Yeah. So he proved that this was affecting dairy cattle. He showed 30,000 cows being affected by it. But yeah, you can call Dave Stetzer out too, but he's a little bit more expensive than I am. But we do the same.
You can go through and check out the entire electrical system, ground current, and also RF sources and stuff in the area.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I look at RF sources and we look at everything, but we focus on the biologically active frequencies. And that's what you're going to find with the scope. You're not going to find it with anything else. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Nancy, for your question. anyone else? Maybe take one more question. Oh, Pasca. Okay. Pasca's fast.
May I
Yeah,
ask
go
a
ahead.
question? In Connecticut, we're putting a massive amount of high-powered lines. I'm talking about these very ugly big lines, not just a pole. And they're putting on top of those massive electrical utility lines, a cable, some sort of fiber to attach antennas and things like that. What would I use in the community to kind of test that? Because I think in my heart, it's like disgusting and horrible, the situation that's going on, and no one is kind of raising the alarm on health.
So RF travels, yeah, good question. RF travels on energized wiring. So it's turning those high tension power lines into antennas. If you were to take like an AM radio and tune it to like 530 kilohertz on the very low end and get over by those antennas, you'll hear the popping, happening, or the data sometimes on those. On the very high tension ones, they're not going to be producing ground current. It's the neighborhood lines that are going to be producing ground current. But yeah, they shouldn't be putting cell towers or RF antennas on top of power lines, but they do. What can you do? Well, that's a good question. I don't know. Yeah, change the law. So in 1996, we've got the Telecommunications Act where these guys can put these things anywhere, and it's a federal law. So, I know there's plenty of these activists out here, and they're doing a good job, and I would support them as much as possible because they're going to be your lifesavers in the end. I can go out and measure stuff, but I'm not. I can help you with that, but I'm not really a good, as you can see, a computer guy or a activist as much. I can give you information. That's about it. Does that answer your question? Sorry.
Yes, thank you about that AM radio. I could definitely do that. And just to raise the awareness, like you said, with the activists in our towns. Thank you. This was actually great. Why did you say that you gave us the wrong presentation? I thought it was the greatest presentation I've heard.
Oh, I missed them in right there. No, it was my draft. Yeah, and it didn't have all the other stuff that was in there. So I was like, it wasn't smooth at all. And anyway, it was my draft. It wasn't the right one.
It's all right. When Paul uses an oscilloscope, he's spot on. So that's all we need, right?
Yeah, exactly. I spend my time trying to stay away from technology and actually, yeah. I should have prepared a little bit better than this. I'm sorry, Roman.
It was great. It was
Next
great.
time.
Yeah. So I wanted to mention to everyone as well that Paul, well, actually, first, let me share my screen. And before I do that, Paul, is there anything you wanted to say? Or
No, I just want to make sure everybody's questions were answered. I can't see the chat. I don't have the chat on, so I don't see any.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm monitoring it, and so is Bodana.
Okay. Yeah, watch Take Back Your Power and show that to your friends and your family. And then about the data dumps, right? So when you're talking to your local officials or whatever, talk about those data dumps. But talk about waking up in the middle of the night with everybody else, because that just destroys your health. Sleep deprivation. It's cruel, and it's bad. But unfortunately, we've got the Milgram experiment, to prove that they answer to an authority figure, and they'll shock us to death before, just because the authority figure says there's a problem. So what we want to do is let the authority figure know that that's when they're waking up too. So we're just people, right? And but that Take Back Your Power documentary, do showings in your neighborhood, share it with people, and share it with those naysayers, right? It's a great documentary, won 5 awards. I don't know why it isn't being shared. I know it's old or whatever, and people say, oh, it's old, but it was powerful. We really got, we showed it in movie theaters here in Arizona. and we got people together, and we have a $5 opt-out, at APS. $5 a month. Now I've got to thank Warren Woodward because, he really, he was like a pit bull. I wouldn't want to be on the other side of that guy. He just was relentless on getting that low fee. Yeah. So that's what it's all about. That smart meter will kill you quicker than anything else. It's devastating our country right now. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Nancy has her hand up again, and so does Pasca. So
and
go
there's
ahead.
also one more question, looks like in the feed from Eileen. I don't think we addressed this one about the dangers of how dangerous are cell phone boosters being affixed to a lot of
Yeah.
rooftops.
Paul, the electric company is getting ready to change out my single phase distribution line to a triple phase this summer.
Mm-hmm.
It's 90 feet away from my house. Do you
Mhm.
think that's going to increase the magnetic field or electric field or change it?
No, that's just more energy efficient. The 3-phase system is more energy efficient, but you've got, instead of 2 phases in your house, now you have 3 phases. So you might have to buy more Stutz riser filters.
Oh boy. Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
See, Shelley also has her hand up. Go ahead, Shelley.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what Eileen means about the boosters. I'm guessing she means the small cell antenna, but those are obviously very dangerous the closer it is to your home.
Oh,
But
a booster in like your own personal booster, or
I'm not sure what Eileen means. It's a good question because I've never heard of booster, but so
well,
I asked her
they're putting small cells everywhere. Those little, maybe she's talking about those little antennas that they're putting out in neighborhoods, the 5G
Maybe an
antennas.
OTARD.
Signal
Maybe an
booster.
OTARD, Paul.
Signal boosters. Yeah, signal boosters are depends on where it's at for sure. If you live out in the middle of nowhere, and you have to have a cell phone, it's better to have that signal booster up on your roof than it is, inside your house.
Okay.
Or it's better than, your phone working really hard. Your cell phone. Yeah, that's what we see too, is people that have like 1 or 2 bars, their phones there's a variable gain antenna on them. And so they're really super strong. So I don't know. I don't like them. I like using an Ethernet connection, and you can do that. You can talk over your phone via Ethernet connection, or you used to anyway. Yeah. VoIP phones are good too. I like VoIP. Yeah, you can. I'm talking to you, or via satellite, Starlink actually. So.
And yeah, I'm happy you brought that up. So with the Starlink, how did you configure it? You have it all the way in your backyard, and it's wired a certain way, right?
Yeah, it's on the other the little satellite dish is on the other side of the garage, and I don't have any neighbors or anything, so I'm not messing anybody else up. And I don't know what's going on with the bees. I've got so many bees over in that area. They love it. They love this thing. I've got a problem actually with bees. And then I've got that goes from a connection. And I know if you put a cordless phone thing, they don't like it in their hive, but I don't know what's going on out here with this. Maybe they don't see the frequency or something.
Or it's swarming, or
no, they're getting into my like right now they're close to that dish, and then they're getting I've got an array of panels on a pole, and they got into the pole. I went out there with foam and I plugged it up. They took the foam out. And it's like, we've got to get in this pole where the solar is, and we've got to make our nest there. I don't know what to
Put
do.
a hive in. Put a hive. Get a beekeeper to come and put a hive there, so they can.
It sounds like carpenter bees, because I've seen them too, and they're at this time of the year, they're looking for homes to plant their babies in there.
Oh, they're honeybees. No, unfortunately Tucson has got more variation of bees than anywhere else in the world except Israel.
Oh, they're honeybees. Oh.
Yeah, they're honeybees. Yeah, yeah, they're. You can't get to the honey though, because you'd have to cut my pole open. But
Get,
go.
get,
Yeah.
get a beekeeper to come and put a hive there.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And
Okay.
So
plant
they'll have
lemongrass.
so they can have a proper home.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't leave water out at all. I've got birds that like to hang out outside, and they come in, they just swarm the water, and then all of a sudden they're in my shirt stinging me, and I'm allergic to them. Anyway, but going back to the Starlink situation, so you can run an Ethernet off that router. So there's a little connection that you can, it's an upgrade or whatever, but then I run Ethernet about 100 feet, and then I have the Wi-Fi router, because you can't turn that off. I've got aluminum all around that, an aluminum table with aluminum bowl over it, and I've got that insulated, so I'm not getting pegged with Wi-Fi. If I did, my wife would be killing me.
Right.
So,
Paul, how far away from the dish do you have to go before the RF is less than 10 microwatts per square meter?
well, the dish in itself is going to be using a very high frequency.
Uh-huh.
So it's pretty directional, and I've just got something in between it. I've got my garage in between. The way this house was built was perfect, and I could put my dish on the other side of the garage, and the garage, is separate from the house, so it doesn't penetrate through the garage.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise you could put it inside your house and get satellite signal, but it's very direction. You have to have an open sky and everything. So.
Okay.
So it's millimeter waves that come from the satellite, and then
Yeah.
if it was wireless, it would be something in the gigahertz range.
Right. Yeah. 2.4 gigahertz.
Uh-huh.
So that's the router. So but that's in the garage. The router's in the garage.
Uh-huh. And
So
then you
it's
run your Ethernet from your garage to your house. Do you bury
right.
it?
It was buried, and then what
The
happened?
bees dug it up.
Yeah. No, I think that there was one little open. I kind of messed it. I didn't do the right job, right? It's like a mechanic working on his own cars. You could fix everybody else's, but not his own. So I left a little section that was exposed, and the dog went and chewed it. So now I just run the line on top of the ground, and he's fine. I use an insulated wire, weatherproof Cat 6. So I think you can use like Cat 8 or Cat 7 now, but it's fast. I'm talking to you on it. So
Paul, I've got one more question, Roman, if it's okay.
That's okay.
So if a person is building a home and can do it, is putting the electrical conduit or putting the Romex into metal conduit, would that be the preferable way to go?
yeah, sure. And then just putting the wires in the right section. So a lot of times when the house is being built, everybody's trying to cut costs, so they'll have the home run going right through the middle of the house. So putting the wires in the right spot, spending a little bit of extra money, putting conduit around where you're sleeping or where you're spending a lot of time. Sure, yeah, that'll help out a lot. But placing your panel at the right spot in relation to where the power comes in, so you don't get ground current in your house.
And where is that? Where would that be?
Closest to the source and closest to your water pipes. So going back to that Cavett paper, they found that people that had power lines in their backyard, and then the water line in the front yard had greater occurrences of ground current than those that had the power line going over the water in the front, all in one section. So,
Wow.
because you've got a ground, and they're using the ground, the utility uses the ground as a return pathway. And so, it's going to connect to your water pipe, and that's going to how it's going to get back to the source. So, there's tricks to get by that too, like putting PEX in to isolate yourself, from the utilities water line, and try to stop that. But with ground current, it's going to take the best pathway, and then you put resistance in there, and now you're going to have a voltage, more resistance, more voltage, right? So it's tricky, but we can do it.
My main water line, I live in an old house, is metal coming in, and I've measured the electrical, that was a few years ago, and it was low. Does that mean that I don't have much ground current?
Yeah, you have to put a clamp meter on it, and then you know, so with your tools they're available to you, you could use a magnetic field meter. Magnetic
Okay,
field
I've
meter's
got a
gonna show up this
gigahertz
current.
solutions. Got a gigahertz solutions. That's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah, and then put a clamp meter on the water pipe. But really, I would never live in a house that had copper pipes that wasn't isolated from that ground wire. So that's by code, that's what they're going to do. They're going to connect your ground wire to the water pipe. They're going to bond it. So you want to be on the other side of that. So you want to separate that. We put in 10 inches of PEX, and that typically does a pretty good job of isolating the electrical current that's on the water pipe that you're that you're touching when you're washing your dishes or taking a shower or taking a bath or anything. You're getting zapped, and that'll stop that.
Paul, just one more question. Nancy, thank you for all those questions. Great.
Thank you.
Really good questions. No, thanks. This may be something, I don't know if you do or not, but Eileen had a question about structured water, and do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't.
Okay. Yeah, if anybody wants to look into that, I would highly recommend the book by Gerald Pollack called The Fourth Phase of Water. And he talks about how the water molecule is not just H2O, and it has an ability to create what's called an exclusion zone, which is a buffer for our cells for cellular stress, by being able to exchange electrons more freely than standard water, because not all water is just H2O. Water also has bacteria, and a lot of that good bacteria is missing now. So that's a whole nother topic we can go into, but thanks for the question, Eileen. So thank you for everyone for joining us. I just wanted to share a few things with you. So this will be the last webinar, the last free webinar we'll be doing for a while, because this next Thursday will be our first live call for the second semester of EMF 101. And we will be, oh, hold on, Barb. Sorry, I need to honor Barb's question. She just put in about PX section instead of metal water pipe. The non-metal section could be something called a dielectric coupler.
Dielectric coupler is pretty, it's very close. So I get best results with 10 inches of PEX. But whatever you want to use, that's. I tried both, and the 10 inches of PEX, it's so much better. Anyway.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah. So just wanted to recap. So the next few weeks, we'll be having calls with the rest of our students just to give them one-on-one. Oh, Barb said I didn't make a statement. It was a question. Okay. So for the next few weeks, we'll be having webinars and live calls. Paul will also be joining us as part of the EMF 101 class to do a live Q&A, private live Q&A for our students. So I'm just going to share my screen really quick and show you what we got here. Okay, sorry, a little disorganized here. Okay. So the EMF 101 class, it's a 6-part course. It'll help you easily reduce toxic wireless radiation. And wireless radiation has also been linked to increased mold growth. So it's very important for us to reduce it as much as possible. And for all of you here, you probably know that wireless radiation officially is a class 2B carcinogen, and it's rising all over the world, no end in sight. So this class, we have 6 modules, over 31 lessons. We really focus on getting a deeper sleep. We help you create what's called a sleep sanctuary. with some tips that we've learned along the way, and Bodana's learned along the way with her journey into and through insomnia. Of course, reducing inflammation by helping you eliminate dirty electricity. And also, we focus on the psychological aspect of these fields on children. We have a couple lessons there on how social media uses tactics to trap children into the endless cycle of addiction and what you can do to break them out. And we have live calls each week, 1 hour, held out every Thursday at 7 p.m. And then we also give you lifetime access to all the lessons where we have our previous live Q&As with other EMF experts, such as Magda Habas. We had Keith Cutter on talking about practical ways to apply EMF shielding. Lucy Sanford, who talks about the magnetic fields of the earth and her experience with that. Rod Metzinger, who talks about shielding our bedroom from electrical current. And of course, Paul Harding, talk about dirty electricity and some other things. I recently also interviewed Tyler Gertzen, who talks about how to use EMF meters, and he's with Safe Living Technologies. And we'll also have an interview there with Dr. Amy Harding, Paul's wife, who talks about how certain foods can make us EMF toxic. And we talk about all kinds of things with Dr. Amy Harding there, along with her journey through electro hypersensitivity, and also Shelley Wright talking about safe tech in the classroom. And there's lots of other speakers here that aren't even on here. And also this course does help you repair damage from EMF by helping you use the sunlight the right way, and accessing our body's internal medicine chest. And we give you all the downloadable guides. As I said, you can download them anytime on airplane mode or in an airplane. So registration ends on June 27th. So if you'd like to sign up, also, since you're part of this call, I'd like to extend a one-time 10% discount. You can use the code EMF10, EMF10, and you get 10% off the course. So, and yeah, if you have any questions, you can reach out to me, or if you want to reach out to other students, I can of the course for testimonial. You can check out testimonials there on the bottom. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and really honored to have you all here. And yeah, Paul, thank you for all your time. Truly, you've inspired me to really. This is something we can all do, right? This is something we can. Those meters, yeah, they're a little pricey, but you buy them once, and you can reduce the global footprint of all this garbage so much easier, so much more easily. So yeah, thank you for all your work and everything you do.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you, everyone. Yeah, I'll stop saying thank you, but yeah, I'm very, very happy for that. You're all able to join us tonight, and happy summer solstice. Get out there and get some sun.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Roman.